Why is Mike Gundy talking so much about Oregon? Ah, yes, that's right. For the first time since 2008, his program's playing the Oregon Ducks. Everything you need to know about that game, including coaching drama? Yeah, that on a Locked On crossover.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for a crossover edition of Locked On Ducks. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, and Locked On Oklahoma State. He is Cody Stovall. We got him, boys! Oregon fans are going to understand that very much. Thank you all for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks, if you listen to me, or the Cowboys, go Pokes. If you listen to Cody Stovall, that was a sarcastic go Pokes. I can't give you another one the rest of the day, but we're gonna get to everything that you could possibly want to know about this game, including the coaching drama, which we'll get to in a moment. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Cody, Mike Gundy took to the podium. Ever the exciting post-game or pre-game press conference guy, because he's got one of the most famous press conference moments in the history of the sport. I mean, come after him. He's a man. He's 40. We've all seen it. But here he's taking shots, kind of, at Oregon, at the money situation. What did you make of it? I want your take first, and then I'll explain what I saw.
I am actually blown away that Oregon fans are in a tizzy over Mike Gundy saying something logical. What he said was they have a good coaching staff, they had a good coach, they have a good scheme, they have a good system, they're a good team, and they spend a lot of money on their roster. Why is this such a controversial take? It's pretty widely known that Oregon is one of the top spenders in NIL money, and it's not a bad thing, right? If Oklahoma State had Oregon money, don't you think we'd be spending $23, $25, $35 million on a roster? Absolutely we would, Spencer. But what he said is accurate. Oklahoma State spent $2 million 2 years ago, $5 million last year, and maybe $13 to $15 million this year. So what Oregon spends in 1 year, like $23 million last year, Oklahoma State doesn't spend in 3 seasons. Do we need to spend more? Yes, and I think that another part of this that's getting left behind a little bit, I think Gundy was kind of letting the fan base know that if we do get beat like a redheaded stepchild and drugged behind the shed to get taught a thing or seven, then we probably need to spend a little bit more in NIL. So I don't think it was a shot across the bow. I think it was a truthful comment. They have a lot of money. We don't have that. They're going to have a better roster. Let's see how the game goes.
Yeah, Oregon's a big favorite here, 28.5 points, and Gundy said he doesn't pay attention to that, as no coach should, but that's what we're here for, frankly, to discuss such matters. That was a bigger point spread, even without Haas Haney at quarterback, unfortunately, because of injury, than I was anticipating. I think what maybe rubbed some Oregon fans the wrong way was throwing out the $40 million number. Like, where'd you get that from? Even what you mentioned, $23 million. I've heard it get speculated in that sort of range from a season ago. That's what the top schools in the country are all paying for their rosters. There aren't that many that can do it. And certainly Lanning is very appreciative of the fact he's at a place that he can do it. I thought his response was really good. But I think that's the part specifically, is when these overinflated numbers get thrown out there. And for fans, I think that allows other fan bases to paint a perception of the program that isn't necessarily accurate, that, they're just throwing money around and there's nothing else to it. And that is just blatantly false in a number of ways. That said, I've never been one to hide from the fact that, Oregon does have money. Yeah, Oregon does commit and try to win. And Lanning was grateful for that, or is grateful for that as well as he should be. But I'm actually going to start off agreeing with you here, Cody. I didn't think this was as much directed to be a shot at Oregon that was trying to get, maybe he did give Dan Lanning bulletin board material. We'll learn that on the Ducks versus them if Oregon winds up winning this game. But I listened to the comments and I thought that kind of sounds like a message to his fans, like what you're talking about, which is, hey, this is what they're doing over there. and they've got all this stuff, and yeah, we're not at that level, which should leave fans and donors in Stillwater thinking, oh, so we need to find some more if we want to be better. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it frankly was a little overblown.
Yeah, I agree. And at the same point in time, where Mike Gundy got the $40 million figure, I don't flipping know. I do know that last year it was reported that Oregon spent around $23 million, so that's the figure that I decided to go off of. But at the same point in time, Mike Gundy has been around the game forever. You mentioned I'm a man, I'm 40. Well, he's almost 60 now. And I would assume that in that time, he's probably got some connections in the industry that can give him a little bit of info on what's happening in Eugene, Oregon. Is it quite 40 million? Probably not. Is it closer to 30 plus like Texas Tech is spending? Yeah, probably, which is still at least half of what Oklahoma State has the capability of spending, or at least has the willingness to spend. And
Don't you mean double?
I think that I'm sorry?
Do you mean you said half? Like 30.
No, we only have half.
Oh, okay. You phrased it as 30 is half of 13, roughly.
Oh,
and
no,
I was just double checking the math in real time.
We may have spent 15, which is
okay.
half of what Oregon potentially has. And I think this will be one of those moments that we look back at the end of the season, or even after this game. If we do get absolutely decimated, then Mike Gundy is going to be able to look at this and be like, "Hey, boosters, with all due respect, I kind of let you know that this was a possibility." But here's where the bird in the hand conversation comes in, and this is almost unfortunate. Because if Oklahoma State hangs with Oregon and say we lose by 3 or 7 or 10, then Mike Gundy can potentially go out there and say, listen, we're Oklahoma State. We can hang with a $30 million club with only spending $13 million. So I don't necessarily know which direction it's going to go, but I do think that it was a minor shot across the bow to give fans an expectation, but also get the donors to realize what you see on the field Saturday in Eugene, Oregon, that's what you got to spend if you want to get a roster like that.
Is that what you're expecting as an Oklahoma State guy, that Oregon's just going to be able to out-talent them at every single position? There's no advantage. We're going to get into more of that on the show. But just, big picture at a glance, do you go into this game feeling like, yeah, Oklahoma State should be a 20-plus point underdog with their backup quarterback?
I think 28.5 is an egregious crime, and it does discount what Mike Gundy has built for the previous 19 years of success.
Have you met our friends at FanDuel.com?
Last season. Yeah, well, you know what? I will say that it is giving me a lot of comfort in the pocketbook department, because right now you can bet like $15 and win $300. So if you got an extra $15 laying around, have what?
$5. You bet $5, you get 300 in bonus bets.
Oh, and bonus bets. I was talking about legit money. If you
I got you.
Right now with the odds, you're making over $300. So with $15, I mean, not everybody may have $15 laying around, but I know I sure as all get out did, because when I saw that line keep going up, I was like, they're better than Oklahoma State. They have more talent than Oklahoma State. They should win, but by almost 30 flipping points, no, I don't see that happening. I think that you asked for a general. I would say that probably 85% of Oregon's roster is much better than Oklahoma State's. The question is that 15% going to be at enough key positions to make life difficult on the Ducks? And that, I think, is a plausible scenario.
And that is what we are going to dive into on the rest of today's show. So stick around. We have got a lot more coming on a crossover edition of Locked On Ducks and Locked On Oklahoma State. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete, you focus on every detail. Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. You can feel it every single moment you're in the car, and from the first moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Mazda's got everything that you want, paying attention to the details, which I appreciate. I'm a pretty detail-oriented guy, or at least I try to be. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Continuing on, getting set for a Big Ten, Big 12 showdown this weekend. Cody, ask away. I am an open book, hopefully an informative one for the Oklahoma State fans out there. What questions do you have about this Oregon team going into the game?
Well, you had 7 running backs play. A lot of people anticipated Mekhi Hughes was going to be the creme de la creme when it came to running backs after what he did at Tulane. But it doesn't even look like he might even be the number 2. So is Oregon's running game as advertised 7 deep, or is that a little bit of smoke and mirrors predicated upon the score of the game?
I think it's more representative of the depth in that room. You know, we saw a couple of true freshmen get carries against Montana State. The staff and the cinematic recap, Ducks versus them, was definitely, something that confirmed what I'm about to say, which is it felt like in this game against Montana State, there was an element of the coaching staff's approach that was throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, give as many guys an opportunity to play as you can. I don't think this many guys would have played, not just at running back, but for a number of positions in the old days where you couldn't play a single game and still retain your red shirt. But the new rule, which I think is a good one, the NCAA doesn't get a lot of things right. I think they got this one absolutely right. Being able to play in up to 4 games and maintaining a red shirt is phenomenal for roster development. Yeah. So I think there were names on both sides of the ball that saw the field on Saturday for the Ducks that are not going to be regular rotation players going forward. I do think they're still perhaps maybe trying to figure out what some of those rotations are. But to your point about the running game, I don't think that was a reflection of we don't have a guy, we need someone to distinguish themselves. I think it was we trust all of these guys to be able to carry the ball. The interesting thing about the running back room and all the guys we saw, they're all different. None of them really look or run the same. Like if you took their numbers off of the jerseys, if you just saw them run the ball for, 8 to 10 yards, you'd be able to tell who is who because they have a distinct style. They're not carbon copies of one another. So, Noah Whittington had the first snap and topped out at, I think, over 20 miles an hour on a run down the sideline. He got a great block from true freshman DeCorian Moore. And, the running game, as long as the offensive line is opening up lanes, I am not concerned in the slightest that there are guys who, when they get to the second level, can hit the next gear, make a man miss, or, run through a guy like Jordan Davison at 3 touchdowns in a short yardage situation. All
right. Well, I think that sums some of that. Do you want me to keep rapid firing?
Yeah. Fire away. This is your segment to ask the questions, all the questions you want.
If Oklahoma State is going to have a legitimate chance at getting some potential turnovers, it's going to be by getting pressure on Dante Moore. I know Harkey's really good. I know World's really good. Your offensive line collectively is probably a very, very good unit. But after watching both teams play, that was probably the highlight of Oklahoma State's game against UT Martin was the front 7 consistently getting so much pressure. It's hard to judge from UTM, of course, but this is where we're still finding some hope and giving the Ducks fits. You saw Wendell Gregory tie a Big 12 record, 3 sacks, first game of all time as a freshman. Is the offensive line at Oregon going to be sufficient enough to keep Dante Moore up the entire game?
It's one of those things that, we got a good data point on as Oregon fans against Montana State. But, with Penn State being a 10 on how confidently you can evaluate based on the opponent, Montana State to me is a 4. So I think that, it's still a good sign. You wanted to see the O-line play this way, especially after last year's Idaho debacle where they averaged 2.9 yards a carry. Dylan Gabriel was sacked a few times. It was a complete mess. So that was at least progress. It doesn't necessarily mean that when they go to Penn State, Dante Moore is going to have all the time to throw in the world and they're going to average 5.5 yards a carry. But this unit in particular, they actually dealt with an injury on Saturday. You wouldn't have known unless you'd seen him go off the field, which of course they showed on the broadcast. But, their ability to have some real depth, particularly on the interior. Like Davey Uli started at one of the guard positions, and then you had Emmanuel Prenon start at the other guard spot, transfer from USC. He goes down with an injury. They then bring in either Kavika Rogers or Matthew Bedford. Rogers has been with the program for at least 3 years, maybe 4. I'd have to double check, and has been incredibly solid in his career. And Matthew Bedford got hurt last year. He came over from Indiana. He is in his 7th year of college football. So the options and quality experience options on the interior are really good. I think if Oregon were to lose one of their tackles, there is a good tackle replacement in there in Janoris Wilson. But, I don't know that they're necessarily as deep right now. I think those young guys need another year of experience before they can get to that spot. But yeah, I think this offensive line, Iapani Leleulu, or Poncho as he's known, as Oregon's starting center, he is going to be, I think, a candidate for the Remington Award this year, given to the best center in college football. He is a bona fide stud. He might be off to the NFL a year before he has to go, or will be out of eligibility, because he's really good. So they played really well. They're going to get a bigger test here against Oklahoma State than was Montana State, but through one game, it's hard to not feel good about that group.
All right, I'll give you another one here. You guys have a 6'6" wide receiver that probably gives a pretty good look and test in practice, but Oklahoma State brings in 6'4", 215-pound Christian Fitzpatrick. I believe that 6'5", 225-pound Io Shotomai King is going to be healthy enough to make this trip. And then we also did see a little bit out of another 6'4", 215-pounder in Cam Abshire. What does Oregon have on the outside other than speed that can contend with some of these potential red zone problematic targets?
Jurion Dickey was suspended indefinitely, and I still look at this wide receiver room as being as deep as it has ever been. They have done basically nothing but recruit blue chip talent across the board. They are incredibly deep. I don't know who the number one guy, I'm going to talk about this more on my Oregon show tomorrow, but coming into this year, I predicted true freshman 5-star DeCorian Moore to lead the Ducks in receiving yards. I don't know. Like that was me trying to speak it into existence because it'd be exciting. But this is not a concern. It's kind of like the running back room. I don't know who's going to emerge, but I feel good about all of them. Like I look at this wide receiver room and say, man, you've got a lot of different body types, a lot of different skill sets, different levels of experience as well. And I think that for Dante Moore, when you also factor in Kenyon Sadiq at tight end, Sadiq the Freak they call him, you've got plenty of weapons across the board to be able to distribute. You just have to be able to make the good reads, which he did on Saturday, and we certainly want to see that again against a Power 4 opponent and have the time to throw, which again, he did on Saturday, and we'll see if the O-line can repeat that performance.
So you think DeCorian Moore and Sadiq, essentially to go along with Kyler Casper, are what give the defense a good enough look to contend with the big body receivers that the Cowboys are likely to bring to the fold here?
Yeah, I think Casper is, kind of a niche role guy. Or Gary Bryant Jr. is the name, and Malik Benson, based on last week, are names that I think Oklahoma State fans should know on the perimeter. Benson had a really good game. He's another experienced guy who hasn't found his footing at the Power 4 level. He was a wide receiver in Florida State's offense last year. Yikes. And in game 1, he leads Oregon in receiving yards. And I think it was only 50 or so because they spread the ball around a lot. I think they had 11 different guys catch a pass. So, he had a good touchdown, had a couple other nice moments. Like he's 6'1", can really, really run. So, the options are definitely there. But I mean, I think your top 3 are probably, based on game 1 in no order, DeCorian Moore, Malik Benson, and Gary Bryant. And I think that second crop is Kyler Casper, Jeremiah McClellan, and Justice Lowe as well. And those are all just wide receivers. Not even talking about Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end, who's awesome. Like I think Oregon's really, really well off at that spot.
Yeah, I think Kenyon Sadiq is a cheat code. I don't think it's fair that he's going to be out there against us.
No. Watch for the hurdle. If Oklahoma State really wants to get detailed with their prep as a coaching staff, you got to watch for the hurdles on that guy. I got a question before the season kicked off, over under 2.5 hurdles. I think I took the under. He's already at 1, and we have 11 games to go. So the over might be, or maybe the over under was 3.5. I don't know, but that's he had one of the big. Each of the last two of the last 3 games he has played, he has hurdled a guy. So yeah, 6'4", does 250 pounds, runs 22 miles an hour. He's not absolutely not fair. When we get back, we are going to flip the script. I'm going to pepper Cody with questions about Oklahoma State. How can they match up with some of Oregon's greatest strengths? That is coming up next. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season's almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So if you feel like you know how the NFL season is going to play out, you can put your knowledge to the test with FanDuel. And if you want to bet anything college football related, you better believe they've got you covered. You have got point spreads, you have got point totals, you have got money line, everything you could possibly want is over there at FanDuel. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get up to $300 in bonus bets if you're right. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So if you've had that one financial goal you've wanted to reach for a while, Monarch is here to help you get there. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. So Cody, now I want to ask you some questions about Oklahoma State, and I want to start with the offensive line because this is an Oregon front four that coming into the year, I felt was the best position group on the team. They looked like that on Saturday against Montana State. The O-line was great too, but that defensive line led by Mateo Uiagalelei and Amari Washington, who could both be early round NFL draft picks after this season, those are just the top 2 guys, I think, on this front. But that doesn't count Tatum Tuioti. That doesn't count Bear Alexander. That doesn't count Aiden Breland, Ashton Porter, Terrence Green. Those are depth pieces, but really quality ones. You've got to be able to block Amari Washington and Mateo Uiagalelei, or you're going to have a very long day. How confident are you in this Cowboys offensive line?
I mean, not super confident, but I think we're going to have to do some pretty cute stuff. We're going to have to do some things offensively that are FCS-esque, right? We're going to have to do some double reverse, statue. We talked about this a little bit last time. I don't think we're going to be able to line up hat on hat, body on body, and get the best out of the Oregon defensive line. And that specific spot is the biggest concern. Everybody knew about Mateo, but dude, Washington, that guy's a problem. And even more so problematic for us is our starting center, Kason Carpenter. He is out for Oregon. So we're going to have to slide over the backup right tackle to play center and now be the guy that's going to help diagnose the defenses for the quarterback, who's also, by the way, making his first career start in Eugene, Oregon. The offensive line, in conjunction with what Zane is going to have to deal with without having his starter center to help call out the isolations and the blitzes and the stunts and the twists, yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a difficult task. It's funny, man, that this is where we are because I sent you a message and said, hey, man, you should have me on again. I'm going to backtrack a little bit on some of the braggadociousness of my Cowboys being so good, but you had to hit the sore spot here. Yeah, our O-line they didn't look great against UTM. It wasn't as bad as it looked live. I went back and rewatched the game. We did open holes, but our running back and Zane Flores did not touch them. They kept trying to bounce the ball outside for whatever ungodly reason. And so that gives me a little sliver of hope that the O-line did do their job to some degree. But against a bunch of NFL dudes up front, I think the objective ought to be, Can we throw the ball in under 2.2 seconds? That should be the objective here. Get it out of the Zane's hand fast so the D-line doesn't even have a chance to make it a disaster.
Yeah, another comment we didn't get to earlier in the show, talking about Mike Gundy and what he said going into this game. He was asked about the environment, and it's going to be, remind me Oklahoma State starter's name this week.
For QB, Zane Flores.
Yeah, Zane Flores. Like, he was asked about that and said, I don't think the environment's going to affect him a whole lot. Again, I don't think that was Mike Gundy saying Autzen Stadium isn't loud. I think he just is expressing confidence in his guy that, yeah, a loud environment is not going to, affect him in a major way. Now, he might still wind up being wrong in that regard. And if Oklahoma State has 5 pre-snap penalties that come back to not being on the same page, or if the ball gets snapped when it's not supposed to, then yeah, that take will definitely look like an L. But again, that was one that I saw some Oregon fans, I think, interpreting online as like, oh my gosh, taking a shot at Autzen. Like, no, I think he's just confident in his guy. But Haas Haney wins the starting job, gets injured in week 1. That sucks. Like, that is the worst when if you think we're excited for the season, which we are, because content is more fun when the season's going on, players are working 10 times as hard, maybe more. Yeah. They're ready to go, and then getting hurt. Like, that stinks. But talk about what you've got with Zane Flores at quarterback and what Oklahoma State needs from him to, at least hang around with Oregon in this one.
Well, and it's not even just that he got hurt. It's that he was balling the flip out before he got hurt, right? So he gave us a little dose of, holy crap, we got a guy again. Holy crap, we might actually be able to give Oregon a run for their money. And then he breaks a bone in his foot, the third series of the game. Enter Zane Flores. Now, I will say the Zane Flores has been a big deal. He's been the heir apparent, the next guy to take over for Spitzer Sanders for a long time. Nebraska Player of the Year, still holds the all-time passing state record in Nebraska. Somebody that Matt Rule came in as soon as he got the job and said, that's my number one target. We still were able to hold on to him. Then that's one of the reasons you saw Garrett Rangel get in the portal. You saw Milo Wake-Smith, 2 quarterbacks that both played last year for the Cowboys. It was because the upside of Zane Flores was so good that we would rather get rid of quarterbacks that we knew could run the system and go with the guy with the highest upside. So that is the common consensus. Zane Flores has top-notch upside. Is he ready to display it yet? I guess we're about to find out. But I think if he would have been the guy to lead the charge, he probably would have won the job in fall, right? So, again, there's no disillusionment here with what we have at quarterback. Zane is a better passer than Haas. That is the one thing that we do know. So if he has enough time in the pocket, he should be able to make some things happen. The question is he going to have that time?
I'm also bummed because Haas Haney is a top 10 name in college football. Man, it's just incredibly.
The Haas Express was really fun, and it rolled off the tongue very naturally.
Yeah. That is an unfortunate set of circumstances, to be sure. I'm going to hold off on my prediction until later in the week and entice my Locked On Ducks fans to come back later. Locked On Cowboys fans, you can catch my prediction later in the week on probably Friday's show, Friday's episode of Locked On Ducks, wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. But Cody, you're speaking of the Oregon faithful here. If you would like to let them know what your prediction is here, the line, according to our friends at FanDuel at the time of this recording, is Oregon minus 28.5 big ones. Your score prediction, sir?
34-21, the whiny, cry, pouty, butthurt Oregon Ducks.
Oh, boy. You're just trying to make friends in Eugene, aren't you, Cody?
No. So, again, I text you. I asked for this, but remember I said, hey, man, listen, I read some of the comments of my last appearance on your show, and maybe I need to, adjust some things. And then all this stuff with Gundy happened. And then Dan Lanning says what he has to say. And then people are going crazy online. And I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm just going to keep stirring the pot because Oregon fans clearly have some extra levels of soft built in them. So not all of them, right? But the very vocal ones, I just think that people are searching, yearning almost for a reason to pretend there's some animosity with Oklahoma State. And evidently they seemingly found it. And then they decided to start bashing Oklahoma State repeatedly over the last 24 hours. We played Arkansas last year, and I thought SEC fans were wild. Oregon fans are taking this thing to a completely different level. I find it kind of wild. So, yeah, I texted you and said, hey, man, let me get back on your show just to make sure I didn't say anything too crazy. And then between that text and this time, I was like, you know what? Never mind. Screw all this business. I'm all about it.
Oh, man. Just in case you think we're lacking for pettiness at the Locked On Network. Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Ducks. We'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.